Let's talk about everyday actions. We have a similar lesson on daily habits, but you'll understand the difference shortly. The grammar point for this lesson will be what we call dilexical verbs. These are often take, have, make, and give. And we'll get some practice using them in everyday language in our next slides. While there are actually more than 4 dilexical verbs, we are going to focus on the 4 you see below. So here we have in past tense, took, had, made, and gave, from take, have, make, and give. So our 4 examples sound like this. I took a break earlier today. I had a bath last night. She made a good point. They gave me a funny look. Let's practice using these in the next one. Now, the differences between these 4 verbs are very small. They seem to be very similar in meaning, but there are very subtle differences between them. So let's take a look at the first one. I had a bath last night. So the word have, when it's a dilexical verb, emphasizes the enjoyment or the experience of something. So if you have a bath, you're enjoying a bath. I took a break earlier today emphasizes the action. So take emphasizes the action of the speaker. She made a good point. So make normally refers to speech or sound or something that is being described. They gave me a funny look. So give generally emphasizes the subject's action towards the speaker or to someone else. So why do we use dilexical verbs? Well, we use them with common actions that we do every day. Alone, these verbs have very little meaning. And what they do is emphasize the action of the noun with slight nuances. So the main part of the sentence is actually the noun and not the verb. And as an extra, we often use dilexical verbs with adjectives to describe the noun further. We'll see what this means in the next slide. So let's take a closer look at take. Now, the structure is always the same. We use subject, take, and then a noun phrase. I took a nice long shower. Now here's an example of using an adjective as well as the dilexical verb to further describe the noun, in this case, the shower. I took a nice long shower. Here are some common uses for take. We often use take for everyday chores or habits that emphasize the action of doing something, as we mentioned. But with take, normally it's something you choose to do. So you take a shower, you take a long walk. It can also be used in another way when something becomes yours. So to take a donut, to take a ticket. And third, we can use it to talk about the time of an action. So you can say, it took a long time to complete something. Now here are some examples using take. I took a moment to think. So here we emphasize the action of taking a moment to think, instead of just saying, I thought. She took my hand and we walked home. In this case, the meaning is sort of becoming yours. So you take someone's hand, it kind of becomes yours. Take a look at this report. We could say, look at this report, but take a look is more active. So you're asking someone to take a look at this report. I'm taking a class at the community college. So this, again, is a decision. It's your own choice. You're taking a class. I took a long nap this afternoon uses this to emphasize the nap. And now let's look at have. Again, this is the same basic structure. using a subject, have, and a noun phrase. I had a bath and a glass of wine. We often use have when we are emphasizing the enjoyment of an action we are describing. And it's usually something that lasts a long time. So, having a bath or having a glass of wine in the past example. In this case, we can also use it to explain set plans or obligations. So, imagine something that you would like to do for a long time and that you would enjoy, and that's when you would use have. Alternatively, we could say, I have an appointment to describe a set plan or an obligation. And here are some common words that are often used with have. I had a lovely bath and a glass of wine. Here we have an action you enjoyed and took some time, actually 2 actions. So you had a lovely bath and a glass of wine, and we have an opportunity to use an adjective here, lovely, to describe the bath. I had breakfast and went to work. This is something you have probably seen before. We often use have to describe meals because generally we enjoy our meals and they take some time. I had a drink with my old friend from university. You can say, I drank with my old friend from university, but it doesn't have the same meaning. I had a drink with my old friend from university implies you enjoyed it and it took some time. I'm working tomorrow, but I only have 2 meetings. In this case, this is the separate meaning of a schedule, a set schedule you have for the next day. I only have 2 meetings. And now on to make. Again, it's the same structure. We use a subject, make, and our noun phrase. I made a big speech about the environment. When we use make as a dilexical verb, we're usually describing speech and words, something that someone has said, or some kind of comment. Alternatively, we use make in a more regular sense to talk about creating something. So if you're not talking about creating something, then you're usually describing speech and words when make is used as a dilexical. And here are some examples using made or make. And note that these either refer to something that is speech related or something that is being created. She made a good point about the economy. So here we have an example of an adjective as well as the dilexical verb, a good point. She made a good point about the economy means she said something logical and intelligent about the economy. So this is speech related. She made an excuse to stay home. So an excuse here is our part of speech, and make an excuse means to say that you're sick even if you aren't sick, so you can stay home. But still, it's speech related. She made an excuse to stay home. She made a comment about my cooking. This is also speech related because making a comment means to say something. She didn't say anything, but she made a strange face. So this is not really speech related, but it can be seen as creating something. So you're creating a face. And the strange just makes it stronger. Here we have our adjective use. So to make a face. And now finally, we've arrived at give. So again, exact same structure, subject, give, and a noun phrase. I gave him a good reason for not going to his party. So here we have our adjective, a good reason, and the dilexical gave. So I gave him a good reason for not going to his party. I didn't want to go to his party, but I gave him a good reason. We often use the dilexical give when we're emphasizing the speaker or the object receiving something from the speaker. And just like with make, we can use give with speech. So you can say, I made a speech, which emphasizes the creation of something, or you give a speech. So this emphasizes someone receiving your speech, someone hearing your speech. Alternatively, we can use give with physical touch. We'll see some examples of this in the next slide. And here are some examples of give. When he said that, he gave me a good idea. So here I'm receiving an idea. He gave me a good idea. He gave me a big hug and said goodbye. So here we have our physical touch example using give. When I couldn't guess, she gave me a hint. So I received a hint, and then I could guess. She gave me a talking to. So this example emphasizes the speech use. So she gave me a talking to means she scolded me or talked seriously to me. Now, all of these are examples of receiving things. So receiving a good idea, a hug, a hint, or a talking to. Let's take a look at some nuances or subtle differences between these similar dilexical verbs. So maybe you've seen both of these before. I had a shower and I took a shower. These are similar, but in the first sentence, maybe you enjoyed your shower a little bit more. Maybe you stayed in the shower a bit longer and you weren't in a rush. The second sentence, I took a shower, is more for an everyday habit and emphasizes the action of taking the shower. So I took a shower and I went to work. It was quick and functional. And just a little more detail regarding give. So take a look at the differences between he looked at me and he gave me a look. So he looked at me is more direct and simple. He gave me a look is something that the receiver is receiving. And note that we put the object after give. So he gave me a look, but not he gave a look to me. In dilexical verbs, we always say he gave me a look. And let's practice. Here we have 5 practice sentences, and we're going to change these simple verbs into dilexical verbs. So take a look at showered, hugged, drank, looked at, and commented. And we'll make these into the best dilexical verbs to match the brackets. So an action, received, enjoyed, received, and created. So take a few moments, replace the underlined words with the best dilexical verb. All right, let's look at the answers here. I took a shower before I left my house. This is a more common and everyday way of saying I showered before I left my house, because it's something you do every day, very useful in everyday actions, and it's emphasizing the action. He gave me a hug and we said goodbye. So he hugged me is fine, but gave me a hug emphasizes receiving the hug and physical touch, so he gave me a hug. I had a drink with my brother last night. So I drank with my brother last night is also correct, but I had a drink is much more common and it's a little bit softer and emphasizes that you enjoyed the drink with your brother last night. He gave me a look and then laughed. So this is emphasizing receiving a look. And instead of just looking at you, you gave me a look. She made a comment about the heat. So she commented about the heat is also correct, but made a comment emphasizes that this was a kind of speech and someone created the comment. For our conversation practice today, we're going to practice meeting a friend. as this is a very good opportunity to practice talking about everyday actions, because this is what you normally talk about with a friend. In this case, you were going to meet your friend, but you're running late and you want to explain why. So take a look at the words in the brackets that give you a hint and choose have, take, give, and make, and fill in the blanks. Let's take a moment. Okay, let's look at some answers. Sorry I'm late. I took a different route to get here. Here we use took because we're emphasizing the action of taking a different route. And we also get to use an adjective, different, which is the great thing about dilexical verbs. No problem. Did you already have lunch? Yes, I did, but let's have a drink. In both these answers, we are emphasizing the enjoyment of having lunch and having a drink, although these are very commonly used with meals. We often use have. Sounds good. I made a reservation at the bar. So, as we saw before, made a reservation really means to create a reservation with the restaurant. You can also say this in a different way. I reserved a table at the bar. But make a reservation is a very, very common way to say this. So I made a reservation at the bar. Great, give me a few minutes. I just need to make a phone call. So in the first section, give me a few minutes means let me receive some time. Let me receive a moment. Give me a few minutes. I need to make a phone call. And here, we're really saying creating something. So make a phone call, taking an action. So I need to make a phone call. And this is just a very common phrase we use when talking about a phone call. So let's read this through to see what it sounds like. Sorry I'm late. I took a different route to get here. No problem. Did you already have lunch? Yes, I did, but let's have a drink. Sounds good. I made a reservation at the bar. Great. Give me a few minutes. I need to make a phone call. Very well done again. So we've used some very common dilexical verbs to talk about everyday actions. So the next time you see a friend, maybe you'll be able to use a few of these. Excellent job, and see you in the next lesson.